Hello, Augies Worldwide. I'm Dave Kassler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, here with another episode of Ask Dave. Today, we're going to look at a radio. This radio is the Radioddity GD-88, which I received from them recently. It will be introduced nationally in mid-August of 2022, so we're just right about at the beginning of that. I've worked with Radioddity for years. They have tried to get into the DMR space, and their first couple of radios didn't quite work, but they kept working at it. This right here is a reasonably high-end, both FM and DMR radio. Now we're going to do the open of the box, take the plastic out, and so on, put it together. Then we are also going to take a look at what the features are online at Amazon, so you can see what the price is. You can order one. Right now it says there are only 16 left, but I think you'll find that with time they will have more radios in there. Then we're going to take a look at the programming of this radio, and if we have a little time at the end, we'll take a look at it on the scope. So let's dive into the unboxing, shall we? GD-88 digital DMR and analog radio. It's two bands. It's both 2 meters and 70 centimeters. Okay, it has a nice thick manual that's written in pretty good English. 55 pages of it, and the whole manual is in English. So you can see that, they've really put some thought into this. It's pretty well laid out. This is the radio itself. Okay, there's the radio. Now let's get all the things that go on it. Here is the antenna. It's got a male microwave connector here on this end and a female right there. So we'll just connect that like that. We just screw it on. But also you can screw on connectors to like go to an outside antenna and so on. The battery is 3 amp hours. So it's a pretty good sized battery, really, all things considered. It's 7.4 volts, which is standard for Chinese radios, and it's 3,000 milliamp hours, or 3 amp hours. So it's pretty good battery. It is lithium ion battery. It's not a lithium iron phosphate battery. So unless it is and doesn't say that right there. Okay, it's got an FCC number down there. We put it in like this, the top, and then there's a thing that snaps on. That right there, I'm a little leery of, because if this breaks off, you've no way to hold that battery in place. It'd be nice if they had something else that would hold that battery in, but it does work. It does work. Now we turn it on up here, and it tells us that there's still a charge on this. I will put it on the charger later. But you've got a battery up here that you can use to change back and forth. And you've got the standard DMR keys and stuff right here, and the full keypad down there. It's got the push-to-talk button right here. One button on top, one button on the bottom that are probably programmable. And then over here, this is where you will connect the programming cable. And it's a standard Kenwood style programming cable. And the programming cable is included right here. We've got one of these things that my old hands just can't ever get open. So we'll cheat. There we go. Okay, so here's the programming cable. Now there's a chip inside here, and you have to probably install, well, I'm going to just plug it into the computer. I suspect there's a driver already installed in there for it. We have a little, this goes through here. If you can get it through there. No, it's not going to go easily. Okay, you're going to have to push it through with a little tiny knife or screwdriver, and then this loops back through it, so you've got a handheld thing for it. And I never put these on, but there is a clip for the belt that attaches there, and that way you can clip this on your belt. Okay. In terms of a charger, you have to put it into this. Note that there are two places for charge. So if you have an extra battery for this, oh, come on, let's get this. There. That's what it's going to look like. And you've got two chargers here. So you can charge another radio at the same time, but you only get one radio. Here is the power cord for that with the American connector. It's unpolarized. And then there is the connector for the voltage. And we look at the bottom here, and we see the input is 12 volts. So you can charge this from your car, okay? That's very good. You can charge it with your standard 12-volt power supply. Some of the Chinese radios max out at 10 volts, and you can burn these things out, okay? And this just plugs in here in the back, like that, so that you can see just what it is that you're doing. Plug that in, charge up to 2 batteries at once, and we will fully charge this after a bit and get it up where it needs to go, but it does come with a bit of a charge. Now, there are some programming samples in here. Now, let's just talk about some of the features. This is what they sent me from Radioddity. It's dual band, dual mode. It's a fully capable FM radio. Dual standby, so you can listen to both VHF and UHF at the same time for listening reasons. 7 watts is high power. Now, interestingly, the manual never says what the power levels are, but it says max. It has GPS with APRS, and I believe that's both on analog and digital. Now, here's a key function, cross-band repeater, and if I understand the manual correctly, it does that both on FM and on DMR, okay? Same frequency repeater. This takes into account the idea of you can, DMR has 2 channels per frequency with time division multiplexing. This is also important here, 300K contacts. A lot of the DMR radios will have memories so that you can put into them a list of contacts so that that information pops up instantly. 300K contacts should be enough to cover every DMR ID in the world. So I'm going to do a little stuff where I'm going to look on the Amazon page so we can look at some of the features of it. I'm also going to plug it in and attempt to program it, and you'll see the screens from doing that. As I said, we have the programming cable. Here is the Radioddity GD-88 on Amazon. Now, they sell them for $219.99. Note again that that price is a little bit subject to change. They say they have only 16 left in stock. Well, you know, they'll get more in stock as they need them. But it's the Radioddity GD-88 DMR and analog, meaning FM, 7-watt handheld radio. 7 watts is fine for a handheld. It's both VHF, UHF, dual band ham, 2-way radio with GPS and APRS, crossband repeater, that's important. I don't know what SFR stands for, and up to 300,000 contacts. In other words, everyone in the world who has a DMR ID can be held in memory in your radio. So when you talk to somebody like that, they transmit their ID digitally to your radio, and it'll pop up who it is, what their call sign, and so on. So let's take a look at some of the pictures here if we get up close. We've got the usual Radioddity logo. We note that they've added a lot of detail to the front menu, and you've got two halves of the thing, and you can listen to both VHF and UHF, or two different UHF or two different VHF channels simultaneously. Okay. Now, you've got, these are the standard DMR keys that you've got. And as you see, it's just got the standard stuff right there that you would want to go into. Now, they have got some different pictures. Here's the crossband repeater. Now note the crossband repeater leaves the radio in transmit mode all the time, because it receives from one guy and then goes over to here and then transmits, and then it receives from this guy and transmits this way. So you've got this case of the thing being in transmit for a long time. I would not recommend that you leave it in transmit for a long time. Dual mode, dual standby, that sort of thing. It's IP54 water resistance, which is basically splash resistance. It can act as a repeater on the same frequency. Here's just some pictures of it. Note that this battery says lithium-ion POL battery pack, and it's the standard Chinese 7.4 volts. They're all like that. With 300 milliamp hours, 22.2 watt hours, or 0.02 kilowatt hours. In other words, you're not going to power a heater with this thing, but it will power the radio for quite a while. Wow, note this little pressure adjusting hole that's down, I think, right about there. Let's scroll down here and see what we've got. Dual band, dual mode, dual standby, two independent VFOs, dual mode. It's all digital stuff. I mean, you can go to analog to digital, and it's DMR Tier 2, which means that it has two time division multiplex channels, and it behaves well on those. So it's only transmitting on one of those channels at a time, and it can listen on the other one. Dual standby to monitor two channels at the same time. Crossband repeater function is very nice. Okay, and you can go from an analog band to a digital one, or digital to analog. So this is nice where if you've got some, you're doing a group outing, say you've got a bunch of hams who are out in the doing a Jeep outing or something like that, and one of them just has FM and others have DMR, they can use one of these radios as a crossband repeater for that. Same frequency repeater. That must be the thing I didn't understand up here. Yes, SFR, same frequency repeater. Using just one frequency for transmitting and receiving gives full use of the DMR TDMA, that's time division multiple access technique, by using one time slot for receiving and transmitting the received signal in the same frequency, but using the second time slot. Multiple GD-88s within a certain area can create a mesh network, allowing single VFO radios to communicate with other radios, bridged by several GD-88s. So it can do some amazing things in terms of a voice mesh network. It has GPS receiver for use with APRS to allow real-time push messages to the APRS network. It does not say whether that's only digital or only analog. Maybe we'll find that in the instruction manual. Okay, long-lasting power, yeah. Okay, so we scroll down past all these things and look at the product description. Okay, see if we can discover anything new. It's got APRS, GPS, all the neat things that they do. A 2-in-1 desk charger. If you get a second battery for it, you can charge both at the same time. 7 watts output power, 300,000 DMR contacts. That's just a little tiny memory chip that can hold that. So 7 watts and 2.5 watts. 7 and 2.5. I really would like these DMR radios to have a third power level that's about 100 milliwatts so that you can use it with a hotspot without using 2.5 watts, which can actually go pretty far. Here are all the parts that come in it, the specifications for it. This specification is not in the manual itself. Okay. 2AN62 would be the manufacturer. GD-88 is the model number for the FCC ID. Okay, and nice little color screen on it. Direct bulk import and export. Programmable, comes with the cable. Speaker jack, 2-pin Kenwood or Wuxun. It's actually Oshing. Ear speaker mic. And so on. The speaker mic does not come with the radio. Okay, made in China, of course. 1 lithium-ion battery required, and the battery, of course, is included. Okay, and there's all sorts of other stuff, that some questions and answers. There's no customer reviews yet. Okay, so Amazon tells you a lot of information about this radio. Now we're going to try programming the radio. Now we are going to look at the programming software. This is provisional programming software, and Radioddity is finalizing its deal with David, and then this will become the Radioddity stuff here. We noted when we put the port, plugged the cable in, it came up COM4. So we're going to read from the radio. Here we go. We're downloading. Now, something very important to understand. All of the various settings for channels and specific things like that, you download all at once, and when you upload them all at once. Okay, so you cannot do a partial upload. Now there's a separate upload to do the list of contacts and stuff like that. That is a separate upload. So I'm going to put my call here, KE0OG. Okay, DMR ID, which I will get from my logbook. And this is public knowledge, all DMR IDs are. Radio settings, it's English. Backlight's on. Key lock is off. You can do some of these from the front channel too. End tone type, if you want. Record, transmit, and receive. You can record up to 50 hours on this thing. Scan mode is just for carrier. Squelch levels, if you're going to use the Vox, please don't. Busy channel lockout is off. Timeout timer is 3 minutes. Okay, and you can make it longer if you want. Vox is off, which it should be. Okay, roaming off, roaming mode manual, roaming RSSI. Let's go down to menu settings. All the different things that you can click that will show up in the menus. Some of these things, for example, you may want to set this for a friend but not allow a factory reset or something like that. Okay, other settings, different prompts and so on. Now these are quick messages that you can send to somebody if you want to. LED indicators are all on. Mic gain, okay, on the different channels. The DMR settings, GPS on off, we'll leave it at on. GPS channel will be the current channel. We'll leave it on current channel. DTMF we're not going to worry about. Man down is off. Okay, what man down means is that normally a public servant would have the radio on his or her belt clip in a vertical position. If the radio goes to a horizontal position, such as might be the case if somebody falls down, it will trigger an alert. This is a feature generally not used in ham radio. Similarly with remote kill and so on, these are things that are used in public service. APRS settings, the analog frequency for 144.39, my call KE0OG, and there's supposed to be a hyphen in here, and I can never remember what the okay, destination call sign, power, so on and so forth. Okay, sending text using a Radioddity GD-88. Okay, digital APRS channels. Okay, there's the report talk group and so on. I wouldn't go beyond that unless you really know. Now, I do know my latitude and longitude. We'll just do beacon location from the GPS location. Okay. Button settings. This button up here. Okay. Monitor or relay toggle. Permanent monitor or relay monitor toggle. Promiscuous mode means you can listen to anybody. GPS on and off. Okay. Zone switch, scan, and you can even set the long press duration if you find that 2 seconds does not work for you. Now, there's a button there, and let me see if there is a button on the top. There is. The button on the top is set, it's P3. It's that little orange thing right there. Contacts. Now, this is where you can load in various contacts in here. Okay, receive groups, scan lists, and zones and channels. Okay, there's not that much set up right here for the different zones and channels. You'd put them all in here. I recommend learning about DMR before you start doing any settings or any changes. Now, we have done some changes, and so I'm going to write to the radio. And writing to the radio, that's putting my call sign in and things like that. Okay. Now, on most radios, you actually put the contacts in separately. We'll see if that's the case here, because that can take quite a while to write 300,000 contacts. You're just using the audio going over the programming cable to do that. It's not a high-speed connection to the radio. Okay, write complete. Now let's go up to here and look under here, tools, read and write. Okay, write as factory reset, import, export, help. So we're also going to go down here and save this particular, now the collection of all the settings on a DMR radio is called a code plug. So we're going to go into this right here, and we're just going to do updated code plug, okay? And we'll save it with the standard extension, okay? So there is the software. This is where you would change a channel. Now, there are only 5 in here. You can add a new channel, and now you have 6. Okay, and we can call this Okay, receive. Let's say the refrequency is 146.52, and the transmit frequency is 146.52. Okay, and it's going to be analog, power high, not receive only. Yes, we'll add this to the scan list. It's not an APRS channel. Miscellaneous settings, we can turn all this off right here. Analog settings, we want the wide bandwidth, 25 kilohertz. We don't need any tones or anything like that. And so this is now saved. Channel 6, channel name, simplex. Okay. We can go to the previous channel. Okay, note that we've added a channel which is pure FM. Okay, it's analog, and we can choose all the different. 25 kilohertz is normal in US, but not on all repeaters, okay? They're not in all areas, and not all channels are 25 kilohertz. There's some areas that are starting to put in truly narrowband FM, which would be the 12.5 kilohertz bandwidth. But 5.2, we'll just leave that. Now I'm going to go ahead and write that to the radio because I made a change. I added a channel. Okay, it's written. Now note here, there are import and export contacts and import and export channels. Okay, import channels, export channels, and so on. Now, you will need to know the repeater frequency, all right, for your channel. Now, there's a difference between the frequencies right here. Let me just pull this in a little bit. Okay, now we've really zoomed in now on this. We see that we've added our simplex channel here that's just analog. Note that every channel needs to be assigned to a zone. You can assign the same channel to multiple zones, but you have to assign channels to zones. A zone, think of a zone as a collection of channels. For example, I might have a zone that says Western Colorado, and it has my local repeaters in it. I can have another zone that says Quartzsite, that has all the Quartzfest channels in it. Another zone that says Pacificon, and it has channels in the Bay Area in it, and so on. Now, note that this is all on the same frequency, but we have a different channel name. These are the names of gathering areas, okay? You could even put in the ID number for somebody that you want to talk to, just a single person, okay? And it'll go out and find that, all right? So let's now do a little bit of testing on the radio. This is a picture of the FM output on the oscilloscope, and as you might expect, it's a constant carrier, and you will not see anything more than this on the scope. This is the output on FM, and this is a spectrum scope going from 0 to 1.5 gigahertz. As you can see, there are quite a few harmonics that come up. The one that concerns me is the one that's, let's see, 300, 600, about 850 megahertz. Seemed a little high to me. I'd like to see all of these come down, and that could be done with just a little bit of additional filtering in the output of the transmitter section of the device. This is the oscilloscope time domain display of the output in DMR mode. Note that it is transmitting on just one channel. the other channel is available for listening or other people to use, or you can use this as a single band repeater and so on by having what's in the first slot retransmitted out the second slot or vice versa. This is as it should be. Here is the spectrum output from the DMR. As you might expect, it looks a great deal like the FM spectrum output. Again, there's that harmonic in the range of 850 megahertz that seems to me to be a bit high. I'd like to see all of these harmonics go away. It can be done with a little bit of extra filtering in the output, but what you see here is acceptable. Now, as I said, we're going to take a brief look at the manual here. The manual is entirely in English, and although not written by a native English speaker, has been written by a very good English speaker. Okay, the table of contents is actually reasonably thorough. There's 55 pages in this thing. It's got a lot. It lists all the parts and pieces that should come with it. And preparation for operating the radio. A very nice, thorough explanation of all of the radio controls here. Okay, and a very nice 2-page explanation of all the various little symbols that appear on the screen. This is nice. I've seen radio manuals leave this out, and it leaves you in the dark. And it tells you what the programmable function keys are and the channel selectors and so on. You can program it from the front panel, although I would recommend you use the software. Okay, and you can do keyboard operations and things like that. It's a lot easier to do from the programming software. Okay, and it tells you some of the basic operations that you'll be going through. This is for the pretty much for the FM part of it. And then it gets down to some of the things that you'll use in DMR, like man down is something we don't use in ham radio. What that means is somebody falls horizontal. The radio falls to a horizontal position. It can send an alert. You've got scanning and so on, all kinds of things that you can do. And I mean, this is just a full-featured radio. Okay, initiating a call, advanced functions for DMR. It does have the GPS, so it will do both digital and analog GPS. If it's done on DMR, it transmits as a subcarrier on the DMR channel. Okay, and this is set up for, you know, where you can put your contacts in, or you can put the group list in, and you can send messages and so on. There's just a bunch of things that you can do. There are logs. There is, by the way, a recorder in here that will record up to 50 hours of audio. So, and it tells you what they all mean, sort of. But I would recommend that you become familiar with DMR or get somebody to help you setting this thing up. So there's lots of stuff that just goes on and on. Things that you can set up. I mean, this radio will not quite do the dinner dishes, but it is very thorough. It's a nice, thick manual written in very understandable English, and all kinds of stuff that you can put in it. It's even got some instructions for how to do programming. So there you have it, a little bit of an introduction to the Radioddity GD-88 radio. Nice little radio, light, fully capable, and nice FM radio too, if you want to start just with FM and get into it. It's a bit on the pricey side at $220. Note that the Chinese radios, they sometimes change those prices fairly frequently. So keep track of what they are or what you're looking for. It's very compact, light, for a full-feature radio. Okay? I think you would enjoy a radio like this. Like I said, I enjoy working with Radioddity. They are among the DMR pioneers in China, trying to implement the full spec and doing it for the ham bands. Now, as noted before, there are a lot of features in DMR that just don't apply to ham radio. They're here, you can use them, but most of them we will ignore for ham radio. Now, D-Star is the Kenwood ICOM digital technique, was developed specifically for ham radio, whereas DMR is a commercial protocol, first extensively manufactured by Motorola, although it's an international standard. And what Radioddity discovered when they first started making DMR radios, they made them to the spec. Well, unfortunately, the thing about the spec is that a written specification can never cover everything you need to know to do something. So they made some mistakes, but they moved very quickly to repair them and make very high quality radios. Other manufacturers, Anytone and Radioddity and so on, also make the DMR radios. And there are a bunch of other brand names out there used by Chinese manufacturers for these radios. Now note, on programming, you're going to have to use the manufacturer's programming software, because something that's a little bit more broad, like Chirp, only does analog radios. So Chirp and its commercial counterpart is going to have to grapple with digital radios if they're going to stay relevant. Because at this point, well, we've got to get them into managing these DMR radios. And that will come with time. So there you have it. I'd like to thank Martin Wolvekamp, one of my patrons. Thank you very much. You can become a patron of this channel by going to patreon.com/KE0OG. So until we next meet, 73.